Your world is heavily influenced by the window in which you see it. The way you see the world around you is filtered. And we're going to talk about today. I'm Justin Hitt in Inside Strategic Relations. If your view of the world is only through YouTube or a screen or even the television, then that world is heavily influenced by the programming you receive rather than the reality of the world around you. So if you want greater influence, both in your life, over your own destiny, and over others in workplaces or in a business world, you must understand that the world is shaped by individual perceptions as well as how those individuals receive information. So, this is kind of a realization I had last night. I was sitting there watching YouTube and I got down to the bottom of the list of the homepage, and I still haven't found something interesting to see. And one part of my brain said, well, let's go do a search. Yeah, another part of my brain said, just go to bed. And another part of the brain said that if you haven't found anything yet, there isn't anything there to find. The key is to understand that platforms like YouTube, Google, even Spotify want you to stay on the platform, so they have their own goals and objectives. They present information to you that keeps you on the platform. If you're scrolling on Amazon Prime, that is fine. They want that. They want you to stay on the platform at all costs. But as an individual, you must ask yourself, am I seeing the world through a window that gives me information and value, or am I seeing the world through a window that's designed to keep me locked to that screen? See, when you look at these things, you start better understanding what you're putting into your mind, what you're bringing into your senses. Now, see, if you consume entertainment and drama all the time, you essentially become a caricature of those experiences. Now, that could be good. Maybe you're in the entertainment business, and by watching movies, you get ideas of what people are doing. I like personally to watch spy dramas and suspenseful action movies because that shows me an interesting world. They're very often cognitive engagements rather than a lot of the American movies that are just constant stimulation. Sure, entertainment is okay. It is fine, but don't let it to be a distraction to those things that you want to achieve in life. The game of life itself can be the entertainment that you need, can be the growth, the positioning, the understanding. Now, on the other side, though, if you watch too much knowledge, you're watching everything on the History Channel, you're watching everything about geography, you're just consuming information. Too much knowledge, too much information actually makes you shallow. It makes it difficult to be understood by other people. It makes it difficult for you to find balance and understanding so that you can implement that knowledge. Because there are individuals that are very successful in life, financially, influentially. They're household names many times, but they're not actually that smart of individuals. They're really just good at the few things that they do well, and they build on their interests and knowledge and experience to serve a large marketplace. And that's why you'll see them in environments, even though they're flawed in many cases. Now, again, what I'm really getting at here is that when you see these household names and there's the latest controversy and there's a conspiracy, those are distractions, and they're designed to be packaged into entertainment or into programming and used on TV. And you have to ask the question, programming for what? Are these things distracting you from what you must get done to be a producer, and distracting you in such a way that you become a better consumer? And by being a better consumer, you're actually serving someone else's agenda. See, the window you look out to the world is full of filters and impressions. It's the difference between looking out a dirty window and looking out a clean window. It's the difference between looking out a window in the south of your property that receives beautiful sunlight versus the north of the property, which is cold and dark. Now, it depends on what hemisphere you're in, whether south is going to be sunny and north is going to be cold. But my point being is, without understanding, you may be looking out that window thinking it's always a dark and dreary day and it's never a bright day, but someone in the same house looking out a different window may believe that the life is full of excitement and regrowth. And if you are not getting the opportunity or giving yourself the flexibility to see the world as it is, you may have a bias or a misunderstanding of that world, and therefore the techniques and tools that we teach you about strategic relations may not allow you to create relationships that are valuable in the business world. See, that's a big challenge that we have here sometimes. They'll say, oh, the reciprocity doesn't work. I did all this so much for my corporation and I serve them so well. Well, a corporation is not a person, first off. It may act like a person, it may have legal standing like a person, but it's not a person. It's difficult for a corporation, very broadly presented, to reciprocate. But if you have those same behaviors towards your manager or towards your coworkers or towards other people in a business network, those people can function independently and you would have had better results. Again, remember, TV programming, it's other people's agendas positioning you the way you need to be for their success. Education, are you watching 20-minute YouTube videos? Or are you attending a course, a program, a seminar, a deep dive? Are you taking that book and just reading the book and then setting it aside and say, oh, that's interesting? Or are you digesting that book by reading it and taking notes? Now, believe it or not, there are quite a few people who listen to this podcast who don't take notes. They listen to it while they're in their car. They may listen to an episode once, say, oh, that was interesting, and then listen to 5 more episodes in the same sitting. What I'm saying here, folks, is that you must take control of your mind and how you consume information, and maybe even go one step further, and rather than simply consuming the information, but instead reading it, adapting it, understanding it, thinking about it, meditating on its precepts, writing and taking notes and using your journal. And it does sound like a lot of work. But again, it's the cultivation of the garden of your mind that grows the fruit that you so much desire. See, you don't listen to these podcasts because you're bored, and some people do, but ultimately you're looking to get something out of these podcasts. So my job is to make sure that I dive in at an appropriate level. You're only going to get so much out of 15 minutes, but to inspire you, to lift you up, to help you understand that how you receive information impacts and influences how you see the world, and then that worldview impacts how you work or function in this world. There are people who are critical of the strategic relations methods, and they basically say that it's manipulative, it's social engineering, it's manipulating the world around you to do as you wish, but it's no different than what other folks do. And it's no different than what we do to ourselves. So for example, if you see yourself as a victim in this world, the tendency will be that the world will victimize you. You'll either feel that you deserve it in one end of the spectrum, or maybe that that's just the way it is, and that there's this systemic system out there that's against you, and the man's got to hold you down. And you're going to start looking for literature and materials that confirm those beliefs, because when we see things that deny our beliefs, very, very often everyone's pretty reactive. But the problem is that, again, if you start identifying with what you're seeing, because identifying as a victim is no different than identifying as a victor, except the perception delivers for you a greater outcome in the end. So as a victim, you're always being held down. But as a victor, you start seeing opportunities and looking for ways to win and seeking ways to grow. And it's the difference between a mindset of lying down, or a mindset of just giving up and letting the system run its course because the system is evil, versus becoming an entrepreneur or being a part of the system in a way that improves the system for everybody else, or being a part of something. Now, it's not being an activist. An activist is action without direction, and very often that serves someone who has organized you. If you've ever read the book Rules for Radicals, you'll see that there's a system of manipulation, which is the activist is organized by the organizer, and the organizer works for a cause, and that cause is very often something that you can't touch, but you're constantly directed to serve, and it becomes a different scope of manipulation. We'll talk about that another time. The key of this discussion right now is that you see the world through the window you look out. So if all you do to see the world is watch TV, watch YouTube videos, you're seeing a world presented to you. Social media is another example. That world is being presented to you to make the influencer seem more influential, and that's a false influence. When we talk about strategic relations, we're talking about influence that is a completely different level, that is measurable, that is tangible. We're not talking about becoming prettier online or more interesting online or presenting yourself as a character. We want you to have character within that reflects through your actions, behaviors, and the outcomes you create. So if you're getting your information from YouTube and the news stations and social media and television, and you do not realize that these are programs designed to shape your mind to make you more useful to advertisers, then you're actually stuck in a state. Now, again, if you're listening to this, you may have realized that, look, the time you're investing in YouTube hasn't produced you any results. And maybe if you spent that time with friends, family, at a social gathering, at a potluck, at a community event, you might find that there's much more to this world that's worth keeping versus the agenda that very often leaders teach is that this world must be destroyed and built back better. You will ultimately have a worldview that's accurate and starts to shape your biology in a more appropriate way. See, the victim is constantly fearing, looking for the oppressor, looking to avoid being stomped down, where the victor is looking for the opportunity to serve and the growth and where to level up in their life and to grow and to become that next level, the metamorphosis of the individual and their mind so that they can be something rather than to receive a punishment. And so the victor's world is health, wealth, prosperity, where the victim's world is suffering, fear, and manipulation. So again, too much consumption doesn't allow for absorption. Too much absorption doesn't leave room for action. We must seek balance in how we utilize the information that's around us to learn, to apply, to express, to build. We want to be producers, strategic relationships in a production environment where you're producing in service of those in need, of those around you that have wants and desires, and you deliver beneficial products, beneficial services that lift up other people. You now position yourself as a creator, you now position yourself as a producer, you now position yourself as a shepherd rather than a sheep or consumer or someone who just simply brings on and does what they're told. Now, there's responsibility in this, and I say it with quite a giggle because once you start seeing the world as it is, you'll realize it's not as bad as it's being presented to you. And that while there are turmoils and struggles, there's no more turmoils and struggles now than there has been in the past. While there are these crises that keep coming up, you can understand why the crises come up, and you can start looking at the behavior. Uh, so, for example, a lot of the folks that are screaming about the environmental crisis are flying private jets around all the time, and they are asking you to cut down on things that are essential to the health of an individual, yet um, puts you more like livestock. And I will close with this: as many of the systems that you're looking at, they do have manipulative powers engaged in there. For example, many of these platforms are content for the purpose of delivering advertising rather than content for the purpose of educating you so that you don't need the products and services that are being offered. There is manipulation and programming in news media. Look at the language that is used. A news show is a program. What are programs for? Well, the programs are to make machines work a certain way, or to make cogs work in a certain way, or to make systems work in a certain way. One fearful thing that causes people not to really engage in these materials is that you become responsible for your consumption, for how you view the world. Do you get your information from books or little tiny quips and news segments, or you're watching memes for 20 hours a day? Um, and that some people are fearful of that, but I will encourage you right now that when you apply strategic relationships, you're going to end up developing stronger understanding of yourself, your needs and desires, a stronger relationship with your family and those close to you, your inner circle. And then as you're in a workplace, you're less likely to be taken advantage of. You're less likely to be in a bad situation. You'll better understand why things are happening a certain way, and then you'll be able to move appropriately within these systems. It starts first with understanding where this information is coming from. It does feel like today that it's an information overload, but again, You can control this by stepping back, by meditating, by using journals, by thinking about the information you're receiving, being more choosy about the information you receive, and ultimately applying the knowledge you gain as you gain it, testing it in the real world so you can understand what works for you and what works for your growth and what works for the outcomes you desire and this long-term benefit of you and your family. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. If you have any questions about this program or anything we've covered, even if it's just comments, please visit me at www.insidestrategicrelations.com, where there's a contact page and a newsletter, and you can write your questions with the contact page. The content of these newsletters, especially this today, comes from our subscribers. We are not supported by advertisers. We don't have sponsors. We don't want any of those things. I want to serve you, and I want you to see the world in an accurate way, and that comes from the window you look out of. Are you looking at a window that serves you, or are you looking at a display that shows you what it wants you to see? Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. If you like and subscribe, that's fine. Tell us the platforms that were interesting, but I'm not here for the platforms. I'm here for you. So write with your questions, and I'll see you in the next episode.